My name is Rosetta Bellamy, and I am 72 years old. The morning my husband pretended the abuse never happened, he smiled at me across the breakfast table like we were an ordinary couple with an ordinary life. Like the night before had not left my body aching and my spirit shaken. Like his hands had never closed into fists. Like my silence was not something he depended on. That smile was the moment something inside me finally snapped. Before I go any further, let me say this. If you are here because you love real, emotional stories about strength, survival, and women who reclaim their power, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss stories like mine. And please tell me in the comments which part of the country you're watching from, so I know who is standing with me as I tell the truth. Because what I did the next morning changed everything. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen. He had made it himself. That alone should have warned me. My husband, Clarence, did not make coffee unless he wanted something. He did not hum unless he was pretending. And that morning, he was humming softly, like a man with a clean conscience. "Morning, Rosie," he said, not even looking up from his cup. Rosie. The name he used when he wanted the world to believe he was kind. I lowered myself into the chair slowly. My ribs hurt when I moved. My wrist was still swollen, hidden under the sleeve of my long shirt. He noticed none of it or chose not to. "You sleep well?" he asked. I stared at him, at the same face that had leaned close to mine the night before and said, "You made me do this." "No," I replied. He smiled wider. "That's too bad," he said lightly. "You always overthink things." Overthink? That was his favorite word. The night before had not started with shouting. It never did. It started with a question. "Why did you take so long at the store?" he had asked. I told him the truth. The line was long. My knees hurt. I moved slowly. That was enough. He had followed me into the bedroom, his voice low and sharp. "You trying to make me look bad?" he asked. I shook my head. "I'm tired, Clarence," I said. That was when his hand came out of nowhere. Not fast. Not wild. Controlled. Deliberate. And now, less than 12 hours later, he sat across from me sipping coffee like nothing had happened. Like I was imagining things. Like I always did, according to him. "You should smile more," he said. "It's a nice morning." Something cold settled in my chest. I looked down at the table. At the small crack near my plate. I had stared at that crack many times before. But that morning, I saw something else. A line. A boundary. "How's your wrist?" he asked suddenly, still not looking at me. My heart jumped. "You were holding it last night." There it was. The reminder. The warning. I lifted my eyes slowly. "It hurts," I said. He nodded. "Well," he replied, "you should be more careful." Careful. The word tasted bitter. I finished my tea without another word. I did not argue. I did not cry. I did not explain. I had done all of that before. It had never changed anything. After breakfast, Clarence grabbed his jacket. "I'll be back later," he said. "Try not to make a mess today." He kissed my forehead. A soft public kiss. The kind neighbors saw. The kind that kept questions away. When the door closed behind him, I stood very still. The house felt too quiet. My body started shaking. I walked to the bathroom and locked the door. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. My eyes were tired. Not from age. From holding too much. From staying quiet too long. I lifted my sleeve and looked at my wrist. Purple and blue. Clear as truth. And suddenly, I was not afraid anymore. I was angry. I thought about all the mornings like this one. All the smiles. All the pretending. All the times I told myself, it's not that bad. He didn't mean it. It could be worse. And then I thought about something else. What if this is the worst? I went back into the bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept important papers. Not the ones Clarence liked to control. My papers. Old ones. Birth certificate. Marriage certificate. A small envelope I had hidden years ago. Inside that envelope was a folded piece of paper. A note I had written to myself after the first time he hit me. It said, "If you are reading this, it means it happened again." My hands shook as I held it. Because it had happened again. And again. And again. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the memories come. The first shove. The first apology. The first promise. "I'll never do it again," he had said. He always said that. And I always believed him. Because believing felt safer than facing the truth. Around noon, my phone rang. "Clarence." I let it ring. He called again. I answered. "Yes," I said. "You sound tired," he said. "You still mad about last night?" Mad. That word again. "It wasn't nothing," he continued. "You know how you get." I closed my eyes. "You hurt me," I said quietly. There was a pause. Then he laughed. "Oh, Rosie," he said, "you always exaggerate." That was it. The moment. The lie spoken so easily. The denial so clean. When the call ended, I sat in silence. Then I stood up. Slowly. Carefully. And I picked up my purse. Inside it, I placed the envelope. The papers. My phone. My keys. I did not leave the house yet. Instead, I sat at the table again. The same table where he smiled at me that morning. And I whispered words I had never said out loud before. This is real. The abuse was real. The pain was real. And so was my decision. I did not know exactly what I would do yet. But I knew this. If Clarence wanted to pretend it never happened, then I would make it official. As the afternoon sun moved across the kitchen floor, I picked up my phone again. Not to call him. Not to argue. But to take the first step toward a life where the truth could no longer be denied. My finger hovered over the screen. My heart pounded. Because once I pressed it, there would be no going back. And the man who smiled like nothing happened was about to learn that silence has an end. I did not leave the house right away. I sat at the kitchen table long after Clarence's smile had faded from the air, listening to the clock tick like it was counting something important. Every second felt heavy, like it was asking me a question I could no longer ignore. How long have you been living like this? The answer came slowly. Too slowly. Clarence and I had been married for 46 years. 46 years of shared meals, shared bills, shared beds, and shared silence. When people asked me how we stayed together so long, I used to smile and say, "We're old-fashioned." What I really meant was, I learned how to endure. The first time he hurt me, we had only been married 6 months. I remember it clearly. We were standing in the living room of our first apartment. The carpet was thin. The walls were bare. We were still pretending life was simple. He had come home late. I asked him where he'd been. Just a question. Nothing sharp. Nothing accusing. He didn't answer at first. Then he turned suddenly and shoved me. Not hard enough to leave a mark. Just hard enough to scare me. He froze right after. His eyes went wide. "I didn't mean that," he said quickly. "You startled me." I believed him. Because I wanted to. Because believing him meant I didn't have to rethink my whole life. He bought me flowers the next day. Held my hands. Said all the right words. "I love you. I'd never hurt you. You know that." I nodded. I always nodded. The second time came years later. After our first child was born, I was tired, so tired I could barely stand. He asked why dinner wasn't ready. I told him the baby wouldn't stop crying. His face changed. Vast. His hand came down on the table, so hard the dishes rattled. Then he grabbed my arm. Just for a second. Just long enough to make his point. After that, the pattern settled in. Not every day. Not even every month. Just enough to keep me afraid. Just enough to remind me who had the power. Clarence was careful. He never hit my face. He never left marks that couldn't be hidden by sleeves or time. And when I cried, he always said the same thing. You're too sensitive. You remember things wrong. That never happened. I started doubting myself. I wondered if I really was dramatic. If maybe I pushed too hard. If maybe I deserved it. That's how it works. Not all at once. Little by little. People thought Clarence was a good man. At church, he shook hands and smiled. At family gatherings, he told jokes. Neighbors waved at him. You're lucky, they told me. He takes good care of you. I smiled back. I always smiled. At night, I lay awake listening to his breathing beside me. I learned how to make myself small. How to keep my voice soft. How to read his moods like weather. Sunny meant safe. Cloudy meant quiet. Stormy meant survive. Years passed. Children grew. Life moved on. And I stayed. Because leaving felt impossible. Because I didn't have my own money. Because I didn't want to be alone. Because I was ashamed. The worst part wasn't the pain. It was the pretending. Pretending nothing was wrong. Pretending I was fine. Pretending love meant endurance. By the time I turned 70, my body started speaking louder than my mouth ever had. My joints ached. My heart raced. My sleep broke into pieces. The doctor said stress was a problem. I nodded. But I never said why. That morning, the morning Clarence smiled like nothing happened, something finally shifted. Not because the abuse was worse, but because his denial was complete. He didn't apologize. He didn't pretend to feel bad. He erased it. Right in front of me. And in that moment, I understood something clearly for the first time. If I stayed quiet, the story would always belong to him. If I stayed quiet, nothing would ever change. I stood up from the table and walked into the bedroom again. I took the envelope and placed it inside my purse. Then I sat down and did something new. I spoke out loud. I believed myself. The words felt strange. Powerful. Dangerous. True. I picked up my phone and searched for a number I had saved years ago but never called. A women's support line. I had written it down after a sermon at church. Just in case, I told myself back then. My finger hovered over the screen. My heart pounded. Because pressing that number meant admitting the truth. And once the truth had a witness, it could no longer be erased. I took a deep breath. And I pressed call. The line rang once. Twice. Then a calm voice answered. Hello, you're not alone. I closed my eyes. And for the first time in decades, I told someone what had been happening inside my home. Not everything. Just enough. Enough to make it real. When the call ended, I sat very still. Nothing had exploded. No sirens. No shouting. Just me. Breathing. Still alive. Still standing. I didn't know what the next step would be yet. I only knew this. Clarence could pretend the abuse never happened. But I wouldn't anymore. And tomorrow, I would take the next step. One that would change my name. My life. And the lie that had kept me silent for far too long. The woman on the phone had not rushed me. She had not asked questions that felt sharp or dangerous. She had listened the way people do when they truly hear you, quiet, steady, patient. When the call ended, I sat in my chair and stared at my hands. They were shaking, not because I was weak, but because I had crossed a line I could never uncross. I had told the truth out loud. I did not tell Clarence. I did not argue. I did not confront him. I did something far more frightening. I prepared. The support worker told me I did not have to decide everything at once. You can take one step, she said, just one. So that's what I did. I took one step. I waited until Clarence left the house that afternoon. He said he was going to see a friend. He kissed my cheek like always, his voice light. Don't think too hard about things, he said. You know how you get. I smiled. Not because I agreed, but because I was done explaining myself. The moment his car pulled away, I locked the door. That was the first thing I did. Locking the door felt strange. Like I was doing something wrong. Like I was hiding. But I wasn't hiding. I was protecting myself. I went to the bedroom and opened the closet. Not the side Clarence used. My side. I pulled out a small suitcase I hadn't touched in years. It still smelled faintly of dust and lavender. I placed it on the bed and opened it slowly. What do you pack when you don't know if you're leaving forever? Not clothes. Not really. You pack proof. I folded my birth certificate carefully. My marriage papers. Bank statements Clarence didn't know I kept copies of. Prescription bottles. A notebook with dates written inside. Dates I had started writing down quietly after each incident. Not full stories. Just lines like March 12, wrist. August 4, shove near stairs. Last night, ribs. I had told myself I was only keeping track for my memory. But deep down, I think I knew. When I finished packing, I sat on the bed and stared at the suitcase. My heart beat loud in my ears. I wasn't leaving yet, but I was no longer trapped. At noon, I took a shower. I washed slowly, carefully. As I dried off, I noticed bruises I had tried not to look at before. They were real, no matter how many times Clarence pretended otherwise. I got dressed in simple clothes. A plain blouse, dark pants, shoes that were easy to walk in. Not because I planned to run, but because I wanted to stand steady. The next call was harder. My sister. I hadn't spoken to her honestly in years. We talked about church, whether small things. Never the truth. I sat at the table with the phone in my hand, staring at her name on the screen. My finger hovered. My stomach twisted. I pressed call. Rosie, she answered, cheerful. Everything okay? I swallowed. No, I said. The word hung there. What do you mean? She asked. I closed my eyes. Clarence hurt me, I said. Again. Silence. Then disbelief. Oh, Rosie, she said gently. You two argue sometimes, but... He hurt me, I repeated. Physically. The line went quiet. Then she whispered, Are you sure? That question nearly broke me. Yes, I said, I'm sure. She didn't apologize. She didn't argue. She didn't say I was exaggerating. Instead, she said something unexpected. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Tears spilled down my face. Because I was ashamed, I said. She breathed in sharply. Where are you right now? She asked. At home, I replied. Is he there? She asked. No. Good, she said firmly. Listen to me. Her voice changed. Protective. Real. You don't have to decide everything today, she said, but you don't stay quiet anymore. When the call ended, my chest felt tight, but lighter too. Two people knew now. The truth was spreading. Not like gossip. Like oxygen. In the afternoon, I walked outside. Just to the mailbox. Just down the street. Every step felt unfamiliar. As if the world had shifted slightly to the left. Mrs. Johnson from next door waved. I waved back. She smiled. I wondered how many people walked past houses like mine every day without knowing what happened inside. When I returned home, I sat at the table again. The same place Clarence had smiled that morning. And I realized something. This table had heard my silence for decades. Today, it heard my resolve. My phone buzzed. A text from Clarence. "You okay? You sounded strange earlier." I stared at the screen. My hands shook. Not with fear. With choice. I typed slowly. "We need to talk, not tonight." The dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. What's that supposed to mean? I did not reply. For the first time, I did not explain myself. As evening approached, my body started to ache. The fear crept back in quietly. What if he got angry? What if he denied everything? What if no one believed me after all? I wrapped my arms around myself and breathed. In. Out. In. Out. I went to bed early. I locked the bedroom door. Another first. The click of the lock sounded loud in the quiet house. Clarence came home late. I heard his footsteps. He knocked once. "Rosie," he called. I did not answer. "Don't be dramatic," he said through the door. I stayed silent. He eventually went asleep. I lay awake. Heart pounding. But something inside me felt different. I was no longer waiting for the next incident. I was preparing for the next step. Tomorrow, I would leave the house. Not to run. Not to hide. But to make it official. And once something is official, it cannot be undone. I woke up before Clarence. That almost never happened. He usually rose early, moved loudly through the house, made sure I knew he was there. That morning, the house was still. His breathing came slow and heavy from the bedroom. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my heart beating hard. This is the day, I thought. My hands felt cold. My mouth was dry. Every part of me wanted to roll over, pretend yesterday never happened, and slip back into the quiet life I knew so well. But then I remembered his smile at the table, the way he had erased me with it. And I knew I could not go back. I moved slowly, careful not to make noise. I dressed in the clothes I had laid out the night before. Plain, comfortable, shoes I could walk in without pain. I did not put on jewelry. I did not want anything that reminded me of the life I was about to step away from. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a small glass of water. My hands shook so badly that some spilled onto the counter. "It's okay," I whispered to myself. "Just breathe." I took one slow sip. Then another. I returned to the bedroom and opened the closet just enough to pull out my purse. Inside were the papers, the envelope, my notebook with the dates written inside. Proof. Not just for the world. For me. I looked at Clarence one last time. He lay on his back, mouth slightly open, face calm. Anyone would think he was a good man. Anyone would think he was harmless. That was the most dangerous part. I did not wake him. I did not say goodbye. I walked out of the bedroom and closed the door quietly behind me. The front door felt heavier than usual. My hand rested on the knob for a long moment. If I opened it, everything would change. If I stayed, everything would stay the same. That choice had once felt safe. Now it felt deadly. I opened the door. The morning air hit my face, cool and sharp. I stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind me. The sound echoed louder than it should have. I stood on the porch for a second, breathing in the air like I hadn't breathed properly in years. Then I walked. Every step away from the house felt strange. My legs were stiff, my back ached, but I kept going. I walked to the bus stop at the corner, the same one I had passed 1,000 times without stopping. When the bus came, I hesitated. The driver looked at me. "You getting on?" he asked. "Yes," I said. The word came out stronger than I expected. The ride felt unreal. People talked quietly. Someone laughed. A child kicked his feet against the seat. Life was moving like nothing was wrong. I held my purse tight against my chest. My stop came too soon. I stepped off and stood there, staring at the building across the street. Plain, gray, official. My stomach turned. This is it, I thought. Inside, the air smelled like paper and cleaning spray. A woman behind the desk looked up. "Can I help you?" she asked. My mouth opened. No sound came out. She waited. I swallowed. "I need to report something," I said. Her eyes softened just a little. "Take a seat," she said. "Someone will talk to you." I sat. My knee bounced. My hands twisted together. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear. I wanted Clarence's smile to be true instead of fake. But it was. And I was here. A door opened. "Mrs. Bellamy," a calm voice called. I stood on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. I followed the woman into a small room and sat down. She did not rush me. She did not doubt me. She simply asked, "What happened?" The words came out slow at first. Then faster. Then all at once. I told her about the shove. The wrist. The ribs. The years of silence. I opened my notebook and slid it across the table. Dates. Proof. My voice shook, but I did not stop. When I finished, the room was very quiet. The woman looked at me carefully. "What you're describing is abuse," she said. The word hit me hard. Abuse. Real. Named. She asked if I felt safe going home. I thought of Clarence's smile. Of his laugh on the phone. Of his denial. "No," I said. She nodded. "Then we take the next step," she said. My phone buzzed in my purse. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Clarence. Calling. Probably smiling. Probably confused. Probably ready to pretend again. The woman noticed. "You don't have to answer," she said gently. I stared at my purse. For the first time, I didn't feel pulled toward it. I felt protected from it. "I won't," I said. The phone stopped buzzing. The room stayed quiet. And in that quiet, I realized something that made my chest tighten with fear and relief at the same time. This was no longer just my secret. This was official. And when Clarence realized what I had done, nothing would ever be the same again. I did not go home that day. That was the first shock. After everything I had said out loud, after the word abuse had finally been placed where it belonged, going back to that house felt impossible. Like stepping back into a lie that had already cracked open. The woman in the office spoke gently but clearly. "We can help you find somewhere safe," she said. Safe. The word felt strange. I nodded, even though my throat was tight. "Yes," I whispered. "I don't feel safe going back." They let me sit in a quiet room while arrangements were made. A small room with plain chairs and a window that looked out onto a parking lot. It wasn't comforting, but it was calm. And calm was something I hadn't had in years. My phone buzzed again. Clarence. Then again. And again. I didn't answer. Each vibration felt like a wave hitting a wall I had just built. I stayed still and let the wall hold. A little while later, my sister called. "I'm coming to get you," she said, not a question. "Okay," I replied. When she arrived, she wrapped her arms around me without saying a word. I hadn't realized how badly I needed that until my body sagged into hers. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. I nodded, even though part of me still felt unsure. That night, I stayed at her house. A small guest room, a narrow bed, clean sheets that smelled like soap. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to a house that felt unfamiliar but safe. Every sound made me flinch at first, but nothing bad happened. No shouting. No slammed doors. No pretending. Clarence called 12 times that night. He left messages. At first, his voice was confused. "Rosie, where are you? You didn't come home." Then it shifted. "You trying to embarrass me. You telling lies about me." And finally, anger. "You think people are going to believe you." I didn't listen to the last one all the way through. I turned the phone off. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and a strange sense of calm. For the first time in years, I knew exactly where I was. And more importantly, I knew why. By midday, Clarence knew. He showed up at my sister's house. I was sitting at the table when the knock came, hard and loud. My heart jumped into my throat. My sister stood up immediately. "Stay here," she said firmly. I stayed. But I listened. "Rosetta," Clarence shouted from the porch, "open this door." My sister opened it just enough to step outside. "You need to leave," she said. "This is my wife," he snapped. "She belongs with me." Belongs. That word made my stomach twist. "She doesn't belong to anyone," my sister replied, "and she asked you to leave." He laughed. "You really believe her," he said. "She's confused. She always gets like this." That old lie again. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I walked to the hallway. "Clarence," I said loudly. He froze. For the first time, I saw something different on his face. Fear. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Why are you lying about me?" I stepped forward until I could see him clearly. "I'm not lying," I said. "I told the truth." "You're ruining my name," he snapped. "You ruined your own," I replied. His face hardened. "You think some office is going to take your side," he said, "after all these years." "Yes," I said, because for the first time, I believed it. He stepped closer to the door. My sister moved in front of me. "You need to leave," she said again. He pointed at me. "This isn't over," he warned. I met his eyes. "It is for me," I said. He left in a rage, tires squealing down the street. My knees nearly gave out once he was gone. My sister caught me and sat me down. "You did good," she said. I wasn't sure I felt good, but I felt done. That afternoon, the calls stopped. No more messages. No more threats. Just silence. And that silence felt different from before. It didn't feel heavy. It felt final. Later that day, I met with someone who explained my options slowly and clearly. Papers, steps, time. Nothing happened all at once. But everything had started. That night, I stood in the guest room and looked at myself in the mirror. My face looked tired, but my eyes looked awake. "I didn't imagine it," I said softly. And for the first time, the words didn't feel like a question. Clarence had pretended the abuse never happened. He had smiled. He had denied. He had erased. But the truth had finally left my mouth. And once the truth is spoken, it does not go back into silence. Tomorrow would bring more fear, more steps, more consequences. But tonight, I slept knowing one thing for certain. The pretending was over. Clarence did not disappear. He changed. That was worse. The day after he showed up at my sister's house, the phone started ringing again. Not with anger this time, with softness, with worry, with a voice I almost didn't recognize. "Rosie," he said in a message, slow and gentle. "I'm scared. I don't know what's going on with you." I sat on the edge of the guest bed, phone in my hands, heart tight. This was a new version of him. He called again later. "I told them you've been under a lot of stress," he said. I said maybe you mixed things up. You know how memory gets at our age. My stomach dropped. So this was his new story. Not that it didn't happen, but that I couldn't remember right. I didn't answer, but the words stayed with me all day. At breakfast, my sister watched me closely. He's calling people, she said carefully. Church folks, family. I nodded. I figured, I said. He's saying you're confused, she continued. That you're tired, that he's worried about you. I felt a cold wave move through my chest. He's trying to save himself, I said. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. And you're saving yourself, she replied. That afternoon, I had another meeting. A small room, 2 chairs, papers on the table. The woman across from me spoke gently. He may try to change the narrative, she said. That's common. Narrative. Such a clean word for such a dirty lie. What do? I asked. You stay consistent, she said. You tell the truth the same way every time. I nodded. Consistency. I could do that. On the 3rd day, Clarence sent flowers. Big ones. Bright. Delivered to my sister's house. The card read, To my Rosie, I love you, let's fix this. My sister looked at me. What do you want to do? She asked. I stared at the flowers, then shook my head. Give them away, I said. She nodded and took them outside. Watching them, leave felt like watching a door close. That night, my phone buzzed again. A message from a church friend. Clarence says you're not well. Is everything okay? My hands shook. This was the moment I used to avoid. The moment where silence felt easier than truth. I typed slowly. I am safe. I am telling the truth. Thank you for checking. I sent it, then turned the phone off. Clarence showed up again 2 days later. Not at the house. At the grocery store. I was reaching for apples when I felt him behind me. Rosie, he said softly. My body froze. I turned slowly. He smiled that same calm smile. You look tired, he said. You should come home. People passed by. No one noticed. I felt small. Then I remembered the kitchen floor. The smile. The lie. I'm not coming home, I said. His smile slipped. You don't know what you're doing, he said quietly. I do, I replied. You're embarrassing yourself, he warned. I'm protecting myself, I said. He leaned closer. You think they'll keep believing you, he whispered. I stepped back. I believe me, I said. That was new. That was everything. I walked away. My legs shook the whole way to the car. I cried once I was inside. But I did not turn back. That night, I wrote everything down. The calls. The flowers. The grocery store. Dates, times, words. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was standing. Clarence's last message that week came late at night. If you don't come back, you'll regret it. I read it once. Then I handed the phone to my sister. She read it and looked at me. This helps you, she said. I nodded. Yes, I said, it does. I lay in bed that night feeling afraid, but also steady, because I finally understood something. When abusers lose control, they don't always get louder. Sometimes they get nicer. And that doesn't mean they've changed. It means they're scared. Tomorrow would bring the next step. The one Clarence could not smile away. The one that would turn his pretending into paperwork. And once something is written down, it becomes very hard to erase. The building was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your footsteps sound louder than your thoughts. I sat in a hard chair, my purse on my lap, my fingers wrapped tightly around the strap like it could disappear if I let go. Across from me was a small desk, a stack of papers, and a woman with kind eyes who did not rush me. This is the step that makes it official, she said gently. Official. That word made my stomach twist. I nodded anyway. I had spent the night before barely sleeping. Clarence's last message still echoed in my head. You'll regret it. I had heard that sentence in many forms over the years. It used to stop me. This time, it pushed me forward. The woman slid the papers toward me. These explain what you're asking for, she said. Protection, space, safety. I looked down at the pages. My name was printed at the top. Rosetta Bellamy. Seeing it there made my chest tighten. This wasn't just a feeling anymore. This was written. My hand hovered over the pen. I thought about the first time he shoved me. The first apology. The years of pretending. The smile at the breakfast table. The denial. The flowers. The threats. I thought about the kitchen floor. The mirror. The note I had written to myself all those years ago. If you are reading this, it means it happened again. It had happened again. And again. Are you ready? The woman asked. I swallowed. Yes, I said. My voice shook. But it did not break. I signed my name. Slowly. Carefully. One letter at a time. Each stroke of the pen felt like a door closing behind me. When I finished, I set the pen down and stared at my signature. That name had been quiet for too long. The woman nodded. This means he is not allowed to contact you, she said. Not directly, not through others. I let that sink in. No calls. No messages. No flowers. No smiles meant to erase pain. My phone buzzed in my purse. I didn't need to check. I knew. Clarence. The timing was almost cruel. The woman noticed. You don't have to answer, she said again. I shook my head. I won't, I replied. And for the first time, I didn't feel tempted. When I left the building, the sun was bright. Too bright. I stood on the steps for a moment, blinking, letting the warmth hit my face. I felt lightheaded. Not from fear. From release. My sister was waiting in the car. She looked at me as I got in. Did you do it? She asked. I nodded. Yes, I said. She reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, she said. I closed my eyes. So was I. We drove in silence for a while. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an unknown number. You think a piece of paper can stop me? My heart jumped. But then I remembered the woman's voice. Not allowed to contact you, not through others. I showed the message to my sister. She didn't panic. She didn't hesitate. We report this, she said. And just like that, the fear lost some of its power. That evening, I sat alone in the guest room, holding a copy of the paper in my hands. I read my name again. I read the words that said I deserved safety. That the harm was real. That it mattered. Clarence did not show up that night. He did not call. He did not smile his way out of it. For the first time, his voice was gone. And in the quiet that followed, I realized something. This was the moment the balance shifted. Not because he suddenly understood, but because I had stopped explaining. I lay in bed listening to the house settle. Every sound still made me jump. Healing does not arrive all at once. But something had changed. I had proof now. Not just for the world. For myself. Tomorrow, Clarence would react. I knew that. He would try something else. Another story. Another angle. Another lie. But tonight, I allowed myself one small truth. He could no longer pretend nothing had happened. Because now, it was official. Clarence did not stay quiet for long. Men like him never do. The day after I signed the papers, the house felt tense even though he wasn't there. My sister moved carefully, like she was listening for something. I tried to act normal, but my body stayed tight, as if it remembered danger before my mind did. That afternoon, the phone rang. Not my phone. The house phone. My heart jumped. My sister picked it up first. Her face changed. "She's not here," she said firmly, "and you know you're not supposed to call." She slammed the phone down and turned to me. "He says he didn't do anything," she said. "He says you're lying." I nodded slowly. "I knew he would," I replied. Clarence's last lie was not loud. It was careful. He started telling people I was sick. Not physically. Mentally. "She's confused," he told them. "She's imagining things. She needs help." That lie spread faster than the truth ever had. And it hurt. A woman from church came by one afternoon. She sat across from me, hands folded. "Clarence is worried," she said gently. "He says you're not yourself." I felt my chest tighten. "I am more myself than I've ever been," I said. She frowned. "But he's always been so kind," she replied. I looked at her calmly. "So was he in public," I said. She didn't know what to say after that. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made my heart race. A car door. Footsteps. A laugh down the street. I sat up in bed, hugging a pillow, reminding myself that I was safe. That the paper meant something. That I was not alone. The next morning, my sister came into the room. "He came by while you were out walking," she said. My stomach dropped. "What did he do?" I asked. "He didn't come in," she replied. "He stood outside and cried, loud, so the neighbors could hear." I closed my eyes. Another performance. Another attempt to change the story. "What did you do?" I asked. "I told him to leave," she said, "and I called it in." I exhaled slowly. "Thank you," I whispered. Later that day, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Rosie, please. I'm hurting. You know I never meant to hurt you." My hands shook. For a moment, the old voice inside me whispered, "Maybe he's sorry." Then another voice spoke louder. "He's sorry he lost control." I deleted the message. That evening, I sat at the table and opened my notebook again. I added one more line. Today, he tried to turn the truth into a lie. Writing it down made it real. And once something is written, it cannot hide. The final move came 2 days later. Clarence filed a complaint saying I was unstable, that I needed to be checked. When I heard, my knees almost gave out. Fear rushed in like cold water. But it didn't stay. Because this time, I wasn't alone. I met with someone again. I brought my notebook. The messages. The dates. The paper I had signed. I told the same story. The same way. No anger. No exaggeration. Just truth. The woman listened carefully. Then she said something I will never forget. "This confirms your pattern," she said, "not his." I felt tears fill my eyes. Not from fear. From relief. That was the moment Clarence lost. Not because he stopped trying, but because his lies no longer worked. That night, I stood in front of the mirror again. I looked tired, but strong. "He doesn't get to tell my story anymore," I said out loud. And for the first time, I believed it completely. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But I knew this. His last lie had failed. And the end was finally coming. Not his ending. Mine. The call came on a quiet morning. The kind of morning that feels heavy before anything happens. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea, when my sister walked in holding her phone. She didn't speak right away. She just looked at me. "They want to see you," she said. My stomach dropped. "Who?" I asked, even though I already knew. "The people handling everything," she replied. "They reviewed everything." Everything. The notebook. The messages. The dates. The pattern. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. The building looked the same as before, but I didn't feel the same walking inside. I still felt fear, but it was quieter now, like it knew it was losing. I sat in a small room again, my purse on my lap, my back straight. Across from me were two people this time, calm, serious, listening. They didn't ask me to start from the beginning. They already knew. They asked me to confirm details. Dates. Words. Moments. I answered the same way I always had. Truthfully. Simply. Without shaking. Then one of them said the words I had waited decades to hear. We believe you. My breath caught in my throat. They continued. His behavior after the report supports your statement. The contact attempts, the story changes, the accusations. This is a pattern. Pattern. Not confusion. Not exaggeration. Pattern. I nodded, tears filling my eyes. Thank you, I whispered. They explained what would happen next. Boundaries would stay in place. His complaints would not move forward. My safety mattered. Each sentence felt like a weight lifting off my chest. When I left the building, the air felt different. Lighter. Like I could finally breathe without asking permission. My sister smiled at me in the parking lot. It's done, she said. I shook my head gently. No, I replied, it's beginning. That afternoon, Clarence tried one last time. Not with anger. Not with lies. With silence. He sent nothing. No calls. No messages. No performances. And that silence told me everything. He knew. That night, I lay in bed thinking about all the years I spent afraid of being believed. All the nights I told myself it was better to stay quiet. I wished I could reach back and tell that younger version of me something important. One day, they will hear you. The next morning, I went for a walk alone. The sun was bright. Birds moved through the trees. People passed by without knowing my story. And that was okay. Because I knew it now. I stopped on the sidewalk and placed my hand over my heart. This is what freedom feels like, I said softly. Not perfect. Not painless. But real. Later that day, my sister asked me a question. What do you want to do now? She asked. I thought for a moment. I want to live, I said. She smiled. You already are, she replied. That night, I packed the suitcase again. Not to run, but to move forward. Tomorrow, I would step into a life that belonged to me. A life without pretending. Without erasing. Without fear deciding everything. Clarence had spent years pretending the abuse never happened. He smiled. He denied. He rewrote. But the truth had outlasted him. And tomorrow, I would make the final choice that proved it. The morning I made it official, I woke up before the sun. Not because I was afraid, but because I was ready. For years, mornings had been something I survived. I learned how to wake up quietly, move carefully, and speak softly. I learned how to read Clarence's mood before I even brushed my teeth. That morning was different. That morning, I belonged to myself. I stood by the window and watched the sky slowly change color. Gray turned to pale blue turned to gold. It felt like the world was opening its eyes with me. I whispered, "You made it." And for once, I wasn't talking myself into hope. I was standing in truth. My sister drove me again. We didn't talk much on the way, not because there was nothing to say, but because some moments don't need words. My hands rested in my lap. They were steady. That surprised me. The building looked plain from the outside. Nothing special. No drama, no spotlight, just a place where decisions become permanent. Inside, the air was cool and quiet. The woman greeted me by name. "Mrs. Bellamy," she said kindly. "Are you ready?" I nodded. "Yes," I replied. The paper waited on the desk. One final document. One final step. This one didn't just protect me. It closed a door. As I picked up the pen, memories rushed in. The first shove. The first apology. The smile at the breakfast table. The lie that never happened. I thought of the kitchen floor. The mirror. The note I wrote to myself. If you are reading this, it happened again. It had. But this time, it ended. My hand did not shake as I signed. Not once. Each letter felt like a breath I had been holding for decades. When I finished, I set the pen down and looked at my name. Not his name. Mine. "That's it," the woman said softly. "It's official." Official. The words settled over me like a blanket. Warm. Protective. Final. I walked out of the building slowly, letting the moment sink into my bones. The sun was higher now. The day had begun without waiting for anyone's permission. My sister smiled at me. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought for a moment. "Free," I said. Clarence did not call. He did not text. He did not show up. And for the first time, his silence did not scare me. It confirmed everything. That afternoon, I went back to the house one last time, with help. Not to argue, not to explain, just to take what belonged to me. I moved through the rooms calmly. The kitchen. The bedroom. The mirror where I once doubted myself. I paused there. "You were right," I said to my reflection, "all along." I left the house with one suitcase. But I carried something much heavier and much stronger. My life. That evening, I sat on the porch of my sister's home as the sun set. The air was soft. A neighbor waved. Somewhere down the street, someone laughed. Life kept going. And so would I. Clarence pretended the abuse never happened. He smiled. He denied. He erased. But the truth waited patiently. And the next morning, I made it official. Speech balloon if this story touched your heart. Please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more powerful Black grandma stories. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here. If you are still listening to me right now, I want you to know something. You didn't stay because of drama. You stayed because part of you recognized this pain. I know that feeling. For a long time, I thought silence was the safest choice. I thought keeping the peace meant keeping myself small. I thought love meant endurance, even when it hurt. I was wrong. Silence did not protect me. It protected the lie. And maybe, somewhere deep inside you, you already know that too. When my husband smiled and pretended the abuse never happened, it wasn't just denial. It was erasure. It was him saying my pain didn't count unless he agreed it existed. That kind of hurt stays with you. It sinks into your bones. It teaches you to doubt your own memory. It makes you ask yourself, maybe I'm the problem. But hear me clearly now. You are not imagining your pain. You are not too sensitive. You are not dramatic. You are not weak. You survived something real. For years, I told myself, at least it's not every day. I told myself, other women have it worse. I told myself, I'm too old to start over. Those thoughts kept me trapped longer than his hands ever did. Fear is quiet like that. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It whispers, just get through today. Then tomorrow. Then the next year. Then suddenly, decades are gone. The morning I made it official wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishment. It wasn't about winning. It was about naming the truth. And when the truth is named, something powerful happens. The shame moves. The blame shifts. The weight lifts. Not all at once, but enough to breathe again. Freedom did not arrive with fireworks. It arrived quietly, in the way my shoulders dropped when I realized I didn't have to explain myself anymore. In the way I slept through the night without listening for footsteps. In the way my reflection stopped looking like a stranger. Healing is not loud. It is steady, and it belongs to anyone brave enough to choose it. If you are watching this and you are still inside the silence, I want you to hear this from someone who waited too long. It is not too late. Not at 40. Not at 60. Not at 72. As long as you are breathing, your life is still yours. Leaving doesn't always mean walking out the door tomorrow. Sometimes it means telling one person. Sometimes it means writing it down. Sometimes it means believing yourself for the first time. Every journey starts with one honest step. And if you are watching this as someone who has already left, who already survived, who already rebuilt, I see you too. I know how heavy your strength was. I know how lonely courage can feel. I know how people praise you for being strong without ever asking what it cost. Your survival matters. Your story matters. You matter. To the women who were told to keep quiet for the family. To the women who were told he didn't mean it. To the women who were told, pray harder. To the women who were told, don't embarrass him. I want you to hear this. Your safety is not an embarrassment. Your truth is not a betrayal. Your voice is not a threat. It is a lifeline. I did not lose everything when I spoke up. I lost fear. I lost silence. I lost a lie. And what I gained was something far greater. Myself. If this story touched you, even a little, please don't keep it to yourself. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notification bell so more stories like this reach the people who need them most. And please, tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Not just the place, but the part of your life this story spoke to. Because when we speak, when we listen, when we stand together, silence loses its power. And truth always finds a way to breathe. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for carrying it with care. And thank you for being brave enough to stay until the end. This is not just my ending. For someone watching right now, it might be the beginning. Yellow heart.